I spent 2 weeks trying to resurrect a dead Silent Hill video game that hasn't been playable since 2015. And no, I'm not talking about PT. While that may be expensive, you can still find PlayStation 4s with PT installed on them going around eBay for a few $100s. This one is a little bit more lost than that. A Silent Hill game that is not available for purchase or download anywhere, cannot be emulated, and doesn't have fans circulating old hardware to keep it alive. This is Silent Hill: The Escape, and it might be the most obscure Silent Hill game. At least, that isn't a Japan-only pachinko game or something. It's an iPhone game from 2008, complete with low-poly hot nurses, cryptic narration, and a Walmart pyramid head who forgot to put on his pyramid for work today. I'd call him regular head, but he looks nothing like your mom. But I'm getting ahead of myself. What is this game, and how did I get it running in 2025? Well, it all started when I stumbled into a Reddit post by user Glitchy Reel promising the definitive guide to the best/easiest way to play every Silent Hill game in the franchise. Now, the best way to play most of them is still physical media. You might have to go buy a Wii or a PlayStation Vita, but for a low 3-digit investment, you can get most Silent Hill games running as long as they were released on a disc. It's more complicated to play games that were only ever released digitally. 2014's PT, or Playable Trailer, is an example of a digital-only game, but that has the advantages of still being new enough and beloved enough that you can either locate hardware with the game still installed, or fall back on fan recreations that do a pretty faithful job. But there's older, digital-only Silent Hill games than that. The late 2000s saw a triad of Silent Hill Java phone games, but those actually emulate relatively well. You know what's impossible to emulate, though? This guy. iPhone games. Even if you had a way to run the software on your computer, which there isn't, a lot of early smartphone games really wanted to embrace the medium, so they used gesture controls, accelerometer, GPS, and other hardware features that just don't translate well off a handheld device. When I saw Silent Hill: The Escape for iOS listed as question marks difficulty out of 10 to get running on Glitchy Reel's list, the Apple fanboy in me took it as an immediate challenge to get The Escape running on actual hardware in 2025, figure out how to record it, and make a nice little video for y'all before old iPhones become prohibitively hard to find, and this humble entry in the beloved Silent Hill franchise gets lost to time. Where it might actually belong! So what is Silent Hill: The Escape? Well, while Konami was taking a breather from developing console Silent Hill games in-house, farming out the development of Silent Hill Homecoming to Double Helix, Konami Digitaru Entertainmento themselves, or Konami Digital Entertainment if you need me to translate, was attracted like a magpie to this brand new thing called the iPhone and published Silent Hill: The Escape, or SHTI for short, in December 2008. And SHTI is an arcade-style, motion-controlled survival horror game, which is all just a fancy way to say mazes. It's mazes on your little telephone. There's stuff in them, so they're fun mazes at least, but you've got to like dead ends and 90-degree angles to enjoy the escape. Getting this game running was actually fascinating from an archival perspective, but I'm going to cover that toward the end of the video because I do want to jump into the gameplay of SHTI. But the TLDW is that I filmed The Escape on an iPhone 5, specifically running iOS 8. Anything newer than an iPhone 5 won't be able to run the game, so don't go trying this one on your current device. I was amazed this entire game is only 21 megabytes with no extra data downloads. The modern Starbucks app is like 9 of these. They could easily sneak this whole game in as an Easter egg with your coffee order. But once I launched the tutorial and saw the simplicity of the textures, the small package size made sense. Title of your sex tape, boom. We're playing as human. It's a mononym like Cher. Lore is pretty light in The Escape, especially for a Silent Hill game, which franchise is known for its top-notch atmosphere, world building, and storytelling. I did my best to squeeze blood from a stone and tell the best story that I can here for y'all with what we're given. But I'm only human after all. Don't put your blame on me. Robbie the Rabbit, series mascot and potential evil genius behind this entire video juego, teaches us how to play the game. Movement appears free, but it's actually locked to a grid. You touch the screen and slide your finger up and down to move forward and back. Swipe left or right to turn 90 degrees, which gently adjusts us so that we're always looking straight down the middle of the next hallway after a turn. It's a little bit of magic that they use to minimize control frustrations and make sure that we're not running into walls. Movement in this game feels surprisingly good for the trailblazing the devs had to do here inventing mobile gaming paradigms. Looking around is accelerometer based. You tilt the phone around to change where human is looking. but your gaze is confined to a small frontal cone and there's not too much to look at. Really, this is more about aiming your crosshair than examining anything in the environment. Speaking of crosshair, there are two methods for shooting. One setting, you tap on the crosshair to shoot after lining it up. It's more accurate, but using your big fat finger to tap the enemy obscures your vision, so you have to act quickly and shoot on faith. Like a self-financed Christmas movie short. The other setting for shooting is gyroscopic. Sharply tapping the back of the phone reads as a trigger pull. You're not covering your screen this way, but it's more finicky. Tapping hard enough to make sure your shot gets registered can upset your aim, in some ways mimicking the real-life recoil of a gunshot. But also, this method lets us pretend our iPhone is a gun, which is absurd enough to be charming, so I kept this firing method on for now. Even if the world had access to an iPhone 5 emulator, there's just no way to replicate the experience of these motion controls. These convenient, fun, certainly accurate motion controls. I kid. I think gamers collectively cringed a little at the motion control fad brought on with the Wii and then with smartphone games out of fear that they would be shoved into too many video games where they don't add anything and hurt the hobby. I wish I could hold the hand of past younger Mothy, tell him not to buy iToy Anti-Grav, and that gamers would make it through okay. We eventually will circle back to having mostly normal controlled games. Going back and playing motion control games now reads more as a curiosity, and I'm able to let myself have fun with it. Reloading is motion-based too. Tilt your phone to line up your speed loader with your revolver barrel and tap. If you don't nail the placement, you only get partial bullets. And that's enough tutorial. Let's go play a real level. Where am I? What am I doing here? Where's the exit? At its core, Silent Hill: The Escape is a maze game. There's 10 levels. Each one has an exit elevator pointed by a green dot on the minimap, but we need a key first to unlock it. Find that key and escape the level whilst managing enemies and ammo. That is Silent Hill: The Escape. And y'all, I looked really hard for environmental details. A big joy of Silent Hill games is the environmental storytelling and Easter eggs, but there really isn't much to find in this 21 megabyte game. Our setting appears to be hospital corridors. I find darkened windows and a bulletin board with 3 pinned notices, far too low res to make out. There's an occasional boarded up door and some blue plush benches, but I think there weren't quite enough ones and zeros in the game for meaningful environmental details. The only enemy on level 1 is nurses. They're relatively fresh and, unbandagey compared to other Silent Hill games, and they walk pretty fast. They don't have AI, though. Enemies in the escape aren't hunting us per se, but they will kill us if we allow them to approach. There's pale gray splatter for shooting them, not blood, and they carry no weapons, perhaps to keep their rating friendlier. Forgetting the fact that they literally turned my phone into a Glock. To help keep us aware of enemies, we do have a radio buzz that intensifies within 3-ish tiles of an enemy, and the heart icon at the top flashes danger when they're adjacent to us. You'd think that's obvious, but it's a maze. Sometimes you don't see them around a turn. This 2-tier alertness system actually makes it pretty easy to kind of echolocate and tell if an enemy that you can't see around a corner is approaching you or moving away. If you can feel your heartbeat fast and want things to last, maybe back up instead of rounding that corner. Let her come to you. Don't chase. After finding the key in a small alcove, we can take the exit elevator located conveniently nearby. There's a number 6 flashing on the elevator. If I make it through here, I wonder if I can escape to the outside. So, human is lost on floor 6 of a hospital, and it sounds like our goal is getting outside. Then it turns out they rank you. You're scored on time, number of enemies killed, which I can't tell if more or fewer is better, accuracy, which is only below 100 due to some misfires, and distance traveled. Now, we could do level 2 now, but before we rush into that, I wanted to do some science to understand the game mechanics better. Nobody else is likely to ever pick this game apart, so let's you and I dissect it now and glean what we can. We're gonna glean. We're gonna replay level 1 quick for a little segment that I call Science Hill. First, I want to figure out weak spots. It looks like it's 2 shots to kill a nurse anywhere but the head, where it only takes 1. The tutorial mentioned finding weak spots for each enemy, and I'm curious what that's going to possibly mean besides the head on future enemies. Like, my other weak spot is my fear of rejection, but I don't think you can aim at that. We don't really have a health bar in Shti. That heart icon is not related to your hit points. Getting touched is death, and sadly enemies don't even get an attack animation. You simply pass away from the prospect of contact. Or maybe we do kind of have health, but it's not relevant because you can run into enemies from behind, and that takes a few spoonings before you drop dead like an Ardat Yakshi. Don't ask how I know. Next, I wanted to see what happens when you reload poorly. After emptying my barrel a few times to test, it looks like reloading does scale with how well you line up the indicator. It's not all or nothing. You get 1 bullet on a wide miss, 2 bullets for being in the ballpark, etc. Now, there's no penalty for Call of Duty reloading every time you shoot one enemy, but also the game really isn't tense enough to bother. You're not going to get killed by surprise due to an empty barrel. This is not Donkey Kong, and you are not a Kremling. Next, I kept firing until I was plumb out of bullets because there is a steel pipe melee weapon that human only whips out when their ammo is empty. And there are no ammo pickups, by the way. Once you're out, you're on pipe time for the rest of the level. And let me tell you, piping is tough work. You have to press and hold to charge up a swing, but you can't move while doing that, and enemies move too fast to pipe them from behind. Giggity. You have to hold a charge and lurk while a nurse walks in your face to then strike it. The timing is a little specific, but it is at least a one-hit kill, and there's no need to aim the thing. I did have some trouble getting my pipe swing to charge, though, until I realized that you have to press and hold in a narrow rectangle area at the screen edge around the pipe sprite itself. Intuitively, I was trying to press and hold anywhere on the screen, but it's not how it works. Overall, the melee experience in The Escape stinks, but you're only forced into it if you spend all your ammo, which there's more than enough of. I'm a little surprised they bothered implementing melee at all. Okay, that was Science Hill. Level 2 is immediately recognizable as the Otherworld. We're in the same hospital, but with flaking walls, unseated tiles, and those classic Silent Hill wire walls. They're a mechanic that works well in a maze, letting you sometimes glimpse an enticing key from the wrong side. Level 2 introduced a new enemy type. It's wheelchairs. Ha. What is the weak spot on a wheelchair? I went for the wheel hub, and that did score a one-shot, but so did just shooting the seat. I think the whole thing is a weak spot. These seem like an easier enemy than nurses, so it's odd they were added in level 2 after nurses showed up in level 1, but the developers probably realized it's weird for the only level 1 enemy in your game to be a medical device. Can you imagine if Mario was jumping on CPAP machines in 1-1? I guess between wheelchairs and nurses, if one of those had to exist without the other, it's a lot less weird to have it be nurses in the first level. There's no new environment details in level 2, but they added dilapidated textures to the windows and benches. And I changed my shooting mode back to use crosshair taps instead of the phone back trigger, so I'm having a better time with accuracy, but it does make a bad experience covering your own phone with one hand to shoot. I know that doesn't come across from the footage, but picture something like this. As far as the maze aspect of level 2, I did the gamer thing to solve this maze and hugged the wall on my right-hand side, which did take me to the key and the exit, but it covered a lot of unnecessary ground first. The distance score is going to suffer on this level. Looks like I got out. What in the world was that just now? It was almost as if I slipped into an alternate universe. So, humans survived their first encounter with the Otherworld and stepped up to the streets. This is consistent with Otherworld appearances in other Silent Hill games, serving as an intense darkness before a reprieve. We're not judging my time scores, by the way, because I'm going slow for footage. Don't judge me. I take ownership of my accuracy rating only. Level 3 puts us in a new environment. Credit to Silent Hill The Escape for changing the setting every level. A simple maze game would get stale the moment you had the thought, this level feels like the last one, and they did well to avoid that. They introduced another new enemy here. Well, not technically. I call it a double nurse. They just put 2 nurses on top of each other, which tests your steady hand and your timing. The mazes are not randomized, and enemies keep the same spawns run to run as well, so double nurses feel intentionally placed, not like they just randomly choo-choo chose each other and formed up. As for the environment, I think we're meant to be outside in the tight alleyways of the city at nighttime with a black sky. Concrete and chaos rise up, spiderweb across the land like a giant web. Iron shutters over closed storefronts. It feels like New York City after 8 p.m. One detail I like on this level are the occasional glowing lamps high up on the walls that shine as you pass under. It's certainly the vibiest level of this game. There's not much else to add about level 3, so let's talk mazes. Gamers will know a simple algorithm to comb mazes is to hug one wall, picking left or right at the start, and always turning that same direction when you have a choice. That strategy will get you through any maze without an island in it, but level 3 does have islands. That's walls that don't connect to the rest of the maze walls, and that means you'll never reach the key with the hug one wall rule. So after wasting a lot of time realizing I was back at the start of the level, I had to dart around letting chaos and vibes guide me till I found the key in the middle of a long, straight island hallway. Once we had that, naively chasing the green minimap dot leads us to the exit without much runaround. Where in the world am I? I want to get out of here. Now! It sounds like we weren't outside, but we're remarkably unfazed by the lumbering nurses and possessed wheelchairs we're forced to put down. Rank D for time at a mere 2.5 minutes is crazy. They really want you to sprint through these levels. Sorry for enjoying your game, guys. That was my mistake. I'll try not to next time. Level 4 seems to establish a pattern because we're back in the other world. The escape is on an A-B rhyme scheme. Amazing grace as game design. Odd levels take place in new areas, and even levels are the otherworld version of the preceding level. Otherworld city level adds some welcome color to the gray streets. It's somehow nicer? Level 4 starts out nurse heavy, and a wire wall dead ends me after a disappointingly long walk down a linear path. Running into wire walls does jangle satisfyingly, though. It's like my spurs. You actually collect the key pretty fast if you hug left from the start, but wire walls complicate the path to the exit and take you through Wheelchair City. Somebody's getting fired for this. There's no way patients who need chairs are getting them on time. Maybe that's what the nurses are worked up about. The time I spent searching for the exit on level 4 lets me demonstrate another mechanic, though. You have a flashlight in this game that slowly flickers out. Except it doesn't really help you see when it's on. It just overlays that nasty white circle on the screen, and the game honestly looks better when the flashlight is out. Those items I occasionally pick up have not been bullets like you might think. They've actually been batteries for the flashlight. I feel like Konami could have done more with this mechanic. Make it meaningfully darker if you lose battery, or some kind of enemy behavior change. But as it is, the flashlight adds little to the gameplay and might have been better off excluded, like the steel pipe. These awkward game systems give Shti a distinct, shall we say, delegated out feeling to the development. Boss said put in a flashlight mechanic, so here's an underbaked flashlight. Boss said include a steel pipe, so we put in a melee feature no one will ever need. Game direction could have been a little tighter, for sure. What were those things? Will I ever escape from this place? Okay, it's clear they just had someone sit down and write all these messages in one sitting. There weren't any things in level 4 that we haven't seen before. I'm not confident they knew what would be in each level when they wrote these text blurbs. Okay, level 5. We know Silent Hill and the Otherworld, which are often synonymous concepts, draw people to them who bear guilt and shame, and that what a person sees once there is tailored to their specific burdens. The town is horrific, and yet subjects aren't often racing to leave. There's an acceptance in the knowledge that either they can't, or that the way out is, paradoxically, by accepting that they mustn't until they confront their trauma inside the town. Yet, Human is unflaggingly determined to escape on every level complete screen. The game is called Silent Hill The Escape, so maybe our manic desire to leave is part of Human's trials and punishment. Did Human abandon a family member in the hospital? Perhaps someone bound to a wheelchair, a spouse or parent they were unable to care for, and now medicine-themed enemies forced them to confront what they tried to leave behind? Or is the maze just an allegory for the American health insurance system? Anyway, level 5 is a train station. The whole eastern wall of this level is top to bottom a cool subway station with some depth to the modeling. It's the most advanced use of 3D we see in the level design in this game. But besides that train, this level is stunningly undetailed. All the budget went into train. There's many double nurses and a new enemy too, bugs. They don't move forward at you, but they effectively block a passageway until you shoot them, and as small mobile targets, that can be tough to do. Until you realize all bugs cycle through the same 3 positions in a pattern, and you can just wait for them to line up with your crosshair, then shoot them. I want to get back to the surface right away. I feel like I'm suffocating. Don't give a if I cut my arm bleeding. Level 6, the Otherworld train station, adds another enemy type, our 4th overall. These hopping things. They look like a little pouch, a mouth on top with herbivorous flat teeth, and they hop on 2 legs. I've been calling them ticks because of their bloatedness, but they don't resemble any one thing too closely. I got a chance to shoot an enemy through a wire wall here and pleasantly discovered that that works. But I do think the enemy score is actually higher when you kill fewer enemies, because otherwise it would negatively correlate with the time and distance categories, so there's no reason to shoot things that aren't directly coming for you. Finding the key on level 6 is not easy. A plethora of wire walls make navigating extra tough. I walk around like a skeleton last night trying to find my way home. But once you get the key, the exit is actually in the same corner of the train wall as last level. I don't think I can make it out to the surface yet. I wonder if there's an exit around here. Well, considering our last few messages about reaching the surface, and that an elevator is our exit to each level, it seems like claustrophobia and confinement might be themes to human Silent Hill experience. Could we have been a patient? Are we getting Shutter Islanded? We're welcomed to level 7 by nasty pea-yellow walls and floor, and an immediate new enemy type. These two armed, long-tailed guys crawling on the ceiling who look just like a Gizzard from Final Fantasy VIII. Shooting their face is not the weak point. Interesting. I thought it must be the arm then to cause them to drop down, but after that guess failed me too, it turned out their weak point is actually the tail for some reason. Okay. This game actually puts some thought into the sound design, which Silent Hill games are typically great at. I'm not claiming anything revolutionary here because it is a 21 megabyte phone game, but our footsteps now clank as we walk on the metal grated floor, and the radio squeal is always creepy when you can't see the enemy. But there isn't too much to notice on level 7 visually. This is supposed to be a sewer, so wall decorations don't exactly make sense. While I enjoy level 7 for being a big style change from the preceding 4, the maze here is actually very simple, and just by hugging right from the start, you find the key and exit very quickly. I've been wandering through this sewer forever. Where is the exit? And actually a good score for once. Holy slowdown on level 8. I don't understand why this one level runs very sluggishly. The slowdown isn't based off of a high enemy count, because I did a run where I killed all the enemies and it didn't improve. This level just runs like jello. What you're seeing in this clip is how level 8 ran on my phone, but starting next sentence, I'll speed up the footage again just so it feels more normal for y'all. So, level 8 has one of the trickiest mazes in the game. They let you get close to the exit early on, only to find all your paths blocked by wire. And that's done very intentionally. Just like how Pyramid Head is first teased to us safely from behind bars in Silent Hill 2, something big lurks on this level, fenced in near the exit. I mentioned the sound design. Footsteps of nurses could be heard in the hospital levels, and wheelchairs make a faint squeak as they roll. And some enemy on this level, on the other side of these wire walls, is making big metallic clunks. This is not Pyramid Head, but the likeness is there in his size and weapon. And I'd prefer to talk about him more on the next level when we fight one from the front and when the game is running at a normal speed. This one I'm able to cheese from behind with 6 headshots because enemies only turn around at dead ends and his back is exposed. I do love the setup of sticking this enemy in a region of the maze near the exit that we can get close to but not access until we circumnavigate. It builds tension hearing his scary footsteps while we fumble through the maze. Now I've come to a worn down house. I've got a feeling that if I find the exit to this place, I'll be saved. I want to be saved. Human can sense this next area is the final obstacle to his or her salvation. Well, that house we mentioned is a whole mansion, or maybe a hotel with luxurious red carpeting and gold-framed paintings on the walls. It's heavy up front with nurses to test our aim, and soon after, the telltale metal scrape of not Pyramid Head. This time we get a better look at his front. It's a tall hooded man with abs, baggy pants tucked into his boots, and an extra large butcher's knife. That pale plate hovering around him is a shield we have to time our shots around, and I found its hitbox is relatively unfair, blocking headshots I felt I made as though my bullets were basketball-sized. It helps to aim for the very peak of his head. Off-brand Pyramid Head is not too much trouble to kite as long as you mind your ammo, but this enemy can actually clever girl you, backing you up into other approaching enemies if you don't check your 6. Aside from the enemies, level 9 has a lot of detail. There are many boarded doors, the planks actually 3D modeled, shaded red lamps dot the walls, and there's even lamps on end tables down a few of the dead ends. PlayStation 1 aesthetic Haunted Mansion is what I hope heaven looks like. I just wish more of the game was spent here. If you can survive the enemy lineup of level 9, the maze aspect is not much of a challenge. How long is this nightmare going to go on? I'm barely holding on to my sanity. Human was so sure this house was the exit. Have we lost faith at the finish line? Let's find out with the final level. Unfortunately, this one is also a low performer like level 8. Both of the laggy levels have been Otherworld. I'm not sure if that's related. Maybe it's something about the transparent wire walls forcing them to render more of the level at once. I'm sure glad I didn't get a phone older than the iPhone 5 for running this game. Shti has not ever been a hard game, but level 10 pulls a nasty trick. At the first intersection, you can either turn right or left. Right is the way to go. But to the left is a long dead end with a not Pyramid Head patrolling it who might catch up to you at a bad time if you ignore him at the start. It's safer to make that left and deal with him first, but of course that's a lot of time and ammo down the drain. Would you risk it or just take the right and play with the stress of him catching up to you? Speaking of, this level finally puts stress on your ammunition supply, even with perfect aim. We've got plenty of nurses, some of which are double nurses, wheelchairs, ceiling gizzards, and, oh yeah, 2 more NPHs. After dropping the second guy, I only had 4 bullets left. That's not lethal for the last one, so I had to evade him. Unfortunately, the key is down off a dead end on one of his patrol areas, so I had to act quick to make sure I wasn't cornered. Then I drew him out to a circular area where I could loop around, squeak by, and make a break for the final exit. I feel a cool wind blowing. Could this possibly be? After confronting triple non-Pyramid Heads and a slew of medical-related enemies, Human has finally made it to the surface. Also, rank B first try, check it. I've made it outside, but the entire town seems to be shrouded in a strange aura. I have to escape from this town as fast as I can. I went very slow here and took in the sights as a lover of early 3D graphics, liminal spaces, and of Silent Hill. We are out on a snowy, perhaps ashy, road along a cliff. The guardrail to our left is broken, aiming down the cliff. Perhaps evidence of a vehicle gone off the road? Perhaps our vehicle? That would explain the hospital levels. Our movement and rotation are still locked to a grid, but I did what I could to look around. Behind us is a staircase leading up from the fog and a gray building, likely the hotel we just escaped. There are no tire tracks on the road, but that doesn't mean no vehicles. What is that? What the? A UFO? In alien language, they reply,
I'm surprised that you were able to make it this far.
What? What are you saying?
However, this is where your journey ends.
What are you going to do? Get away from me.
Farewell.
Hey, stop. That's all I can remember. It looks like a classic we thought we made it out, but didn't situation, and were dropped back on the title screen. But that is not the end of the game. Beating Silent Hill: The Escape as Human unlocks essentially New Game Plus, where we can play the same mazes again as Alien with slightly different mechanics. And that's perfect, because I can use Alien levels as B-roll while we talk about what transpired in Silent Hill: The Escape. Does this game have a plot? So, we know Human was trapped underground and doesn't seem to know where they are or remember coming to Silent Hill. There's evidence of a car accident and implied hospital inpatient stay, so maybe we got hurt in the crash or even hurt someone else, and our burden is the guilt of surviving. Human is obsessed with getting out of Silent Hill post-haste, which is a little at odds with a lot of the series. Usually characters are drawn to Silent Hill in order to confront or resolve their issues. The town's purpose lies somewhere between punishment and therapy. So to me, Human's urgent rush to escape might be the whole point of their journey. It sounds obvious, sure, but to me, the most likely backstory for our character is that we hurt someone in a car accident where we were at fault. Distracted driving, perhaps, or intoxicated. The guilt of surviving trapped us in a metaphorical maze turned literal by Silent Hill, and our escape returned us to the road where we lost control once we're ready to confront our responsibility. Yes, I'm taking big leaps here to invent a story that fits the scant plot details of Shti and conveniently ignoring the UFO and aliens as a joke ending. But if there's no real ending before we get the alien ending, can we call it a joke? Let's talk about how the alien levels play out, I guess. The 10 alien levels are the exact same as the human levels. Same key spots, same exit spots. The difference is in how they perform. Alien has a quicker walk speed, meaning better time scores are possible than human could achieve. And our weapon is now a phaser with unlimited ammo, though you have to press and hold to charge your shot. It's like the pipe in that way. You have to fully charge a shot to fire, and phaser shots do the same damage as one bullet from human based on nurses still taking 2 body shots to die. The phaser is slower than human's gun, but it's definitely easier to aim since you're releasing your thumb to fire, which lets you carefully tilt the phone to aim rather than trying to tap the middle of the screen or jostle the back like a trigger. Oh, and our footstep noise is different. Less of a click, a little more squelchy. Well, as I plow through these alien levels, doing my best to remember the mazes and actually get good scores this time, let's talk a little about the game experience. Let's give The Escape a review as a video game. For 2008, these weren't strong graphics, but that's not a thing I hold against The Escape. For one, low poly aesthetic for life. I will never grow tired of aliased edges and blurry textures. But also consider the platform. A full 3D game on your iPhone was a big deal back then, and the 21 megabyte app size is extremely impressive for this experience. I know I've harped on the size, but this was back before 4G cell data. Even Wi-Fi wasn't widely available back in 2008, so the ability for players to download the whole game on 3G was important. Considering the altogether competent motion controls as well, Konami Digitaru Entertainmento seemed to know what they were doing in the early days of smartphone gaming. I don't have as much praise for the UI, though. There is a lot of crap on your screen during the game. The flashlight ring is hideous, then you have your ammo count and reload icon, or your pipe charge meter, or your phaser charge meter. You've got the crosshair and a huge red compass whenever you're moving, which is always, and that red heart at the top does almost nothing for enemy awareness when we also have the more helpful radio buzz. At least they could have made the heart fade out when there's no threat nearby. They did pack 6 whole enemy types into the Escape, which is more than enough for 10 levels. I personally would have accepted just 4 enemy types in trade for a couple more environmental details. Cause it is a Silent Hill game. Give me little notes to find, or a body slumped over shattered glass to help imply the car crash detail, or something. Cause the 6 enemies just didn't have much difference in behavior from one to the next. Every enemy, besides the flies, slowly wanders the maze, not even really hunting for the player, and everything besides non-pyramid heads take 1 bullet once you learn how to shoot the tail on Gizzards. Big slowdowns on levels 8 and 10 were a bummer, and they were extra awkward playing as the alien. I'd been timing my charged shots based off the sound effect it makes, but the charging sound does not play slower just because the rest of the game is chugging. It would sound like my shot was ready while the game said it wasn't, which made me release early and waste a few 90% charges on the slow levels. I had to retrain myself to watch the meter charge and fire when it was visually full, which was sloppy and worse than using the audio cue. So after 10 levels complete as Alien, with better scores across the board, but no little dialogue tidbits between levels, we again make our escape onto the ashen cliffside of Silent Hill. There's nothing new behind us or to the side. But as we near the bend in the road like last time...
What is that? A dog? Who are you? It can't be. Was it you? Was all of this your doing? Unbelievable.
So if the dog put Alien through this nasty escape sequence too, maybe human didn't actually bonk someone with their car. I'm kidding. Everything past level 10 as human is clearly just joke content to extend the life of the game. Because we're still not done here. There's New Game Plus Plus. We get to play as dog now. Nobody is safe. For a 3rd time, we're racing through the same 10 maze levels, aiming for even better scores on each. The dog's camera is much closer to the ground, and our crosshair is a little dog mouth that animates a bite when we attack. Aww. Our footsteps are much more rapid and accompanied by a cute panting noise. Ammo is obviously infinite, it's just us biting the enemy. But because our camera is so low to the ground and the angle we can look at is a narrow cone, it's actually kind of tough to hit headshots on a nurse. You really gotta tease the camera angle to its upper limit, and this took some getting used to. Feels a little weird, attacking enemies in a short dress from such a low angle. Thanks, Japan. Dismantling wheelchairs by chewing on them was fun, though. Alright, so I promised I would talk a little more about getting this game running in the year 2025, and I'm going to use dog playthrough footage as a backdrop. The Escape came out just before Christmas in 2008 for iPhones in North America, worldwide a month later, and there's allegedly a Korea-only Android port of this game from 2010. Considering its age, it won't be a surprise that you can't just download Silent Hill: The Escape on a modern iPhone. But why exactly is that? Well, it comes down to a big architecture schism by Apple in the year 2015. From the first iPhone, which had only come out a year and a half before this game released, through the iPhone 5, iPhones were all 32-bit devices. Starting with the iPhone 5S in fall 2013, they've all been 64-bit phones, and to support/force developers to make 64-bit apps for these newer phones, Apple began phasing out support for 32-bit phone apps in 2013, eventually just delisting them altogether in 2015. So the reason we can't download this game today is both on Apple for forcing the switch to 64-bit architecture and on Konami for letting their janky ancient game die instead of paying a developer's salary to modernize it. Now, I still have my first ever iPhone in perfect working condition. This is not the same phone I held a minute ago. I would have loved to just run the Escape on this, but it's a 5S. Half a generation too new to run this old game. So it took a little research to find the right phone to run this game on. Theoretically, any iPhone up to the 5 should run the Escape, except for one thing. iPhones 1 through 4S had a 3:4 aspect ratio screen, so the Escape would have been coded for 3:4. I couldn't guarantee the game won't stretch and look bad on the 9:16 ratio of an iPhone 5. Letterboxing is fine, but an ugly stretch fill would be a bummer. Then suppose I get it running, how was I going to record footage? The tools for content production in 2008 were not as nice as today's. There's probably some on-device screen recording solution, but I don't want to tax the old hardware with video recording on top of asking it to run a 3D game. There's a great solution, though. So, QuickTime Player is still around. Y'all remember QuickTime Player? And it has a great feature for screen recording your iPhone. Except that screen recording through QuickTime is only supported by iOS 8 and higher. Now, don't get the iOS version confused with the iPhone version. That's the operating system iOS 8 we need, which doesn't run on the earliest iPhones. So our band of eligible devices got narrowed to just the iPhone 4S and the iPhone 5, which can run iOS 8. Also, technically the 5C, because that's just a reskin of the 5. And technically there's an iPod Touch model that should work too, because those things run iOS just like your phone does. Then further narrowing my search, there's the detail that iPhones before the 5 used that retro wide 30-pin cable to connect. Aside from the fact that I don't own one of those, it's ugly, and I don't want one in my house. So here, boom, iPhone 5, not a 5S, running iOS 8. Old enough to run 32-bit apps, but new enough to screen record through QuickTime. The perfect Silent Hill: The Escape machine. The iPhone 5 is a 9:16 device, so the game gets letterboxed, but it still looks great. I've just had the margins cropped on the footage that you've been seeing until now. As far as getting the software onto the phone without going through the App Store, Apple is famously opposed to sideloading apps or any kind of third-party app store. There are good and ethical reasons to have that stance, but it complicates efforts to run software that has been delisted from download. What I'll say is, jailbreaking your phone was legalized in America under the DMCA of 2010, but this video is neither an endorsement nor instructions for such a task. Okay, let's finish up with our story. What the dog doing? Really, all I have to add is that not Pyramid Heads are extra tough to fight as the dog. Their moving shield does deflect bites, and due to our sharp upward angle, it's basically guarding their head at all times. I wanted to give up on fighting this one, but another came and pincered me in, so I had to rapidly chew through his belly to escape, like that torture with the rats in the bucket. It was honestly kind of upsetting. Then, once we make it outside for the 3rd time, after 10 levels playing Silent Hill: The Escape as human, 10 more as alien, and 10 more as dog, we find little bouncing skull dudes. They look kind of like Christmas baubles. And Robbie the rabbit turns out was watching us the whole time ever since the tutorial. You managed to make it this far even though your legs were trembling in fear. Congratulations! But let's just end everything already. Right here. See ya. Bye-bye. And the actual end of Silent Hill: The Escape is punctuated with a little dog paw on the fin screen. So, are you missing out as a Silent Hill fan if you never get to play Shti on an ancient iPhone? Gosh, no. The monster designs of Timu Pyramid Head, Ceiling Gizzard, and Bloated Frog Tick were cool, yeah, but even scouring this game for lore doesn't yield much of a story, and including the Alien and Dog New Game Plus modes dilutes anything that we can come up with into a joke. Silent Hill: The Escape is not much more than a superficial arcade experience. But as a Silent Hill fan, and also fascinated with the preservation of games, I wanted to give The Escape a full retrospective and actually talk about it a little before it gets lost to time. My goal for this video was to relate the entire experience and hopefully spare the next curious soul the headache that I incurred getting this darn game running. I hunted around for other recognizable work from the credited employees on this game, but didn't find much. Director Tatsuma Minami had a hand in the mobile DDR games from around the same time, as did artist Takamitsu Kinjo, but I couldn't find any, real games. I would have loved to find an interview or some concept art around the monsters in the game, but that well was dry too. What I did find is that there actually is a fan remake of Silent Hill: The Escape for some reason. Minnesotan Mad Lads Apple Street Games released a Windows game inspired by The Escape on New Year's Day 2023. The spirit of the game is intact, but it's far from a faithful recreation. There are actual ammo pickups, and it seems to play more like a shooter. It's more of a spiritual successor. I have not been able to play that project myself, but I'll include a link if you'd like to test it out at your own risk. Thank you for watching my video. You've Silent Hill: The Escaped my first upload. Like I said, this is a brand new channel for me to branch into horror gaming. I have so many games I would love to cover here, but your comments could help influence me in a certain direction while I figure out where to take things in the medium term. If there's a specific game or series that you would like to see me cover, please leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. Of course, big thank you to my patrons whose support allows me to branch out like this. I could not take creative risks like this without you. Much love to y'all. Take care, y'all. Bye for now.